Hello, and welcome back To Lead is to Learn, the podcast where we explore the dynamic world of leadership together. Whether you're a returning listener or joining us for the first time, I'm truly grateful you've chosen us as your companion upon your leadership development journey. Our mission here is simple: to empower you with the knowledge, skills, and insights needed to excel in leadership. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to welcome each of you, whether this is your first time or you're a regular listener. Each of you are a valued member of our community. Your trust in us is invaluable, and it's a privilege to contribute towards your growth. Speaking of growth, did you know that To Lead is to Learn is brought to you by Lambda Solutions? At Lambda, we specialize in leadership development and coaching, dedicated to empowering individuals like you to become the best leaders possible. If you're ready to elevate your leadership skills, or if your organization is seeking guidance to achieve its leadership goals, I encourage you to explore the Lambda way by visiting our website at www.thelambda.co.uk to learn more about how we can directly assist you. Thank you for being part of our community. Together, let's continue learning and growing. And remember, following and sharing our podcast can help us grow our community and impact even more leaders. In today's special episode, we will be talking to an experienced leader about their experience of leadership, challenges they have faced, and any thoughts and visions for the future.
Yeah, hated it. Thought it was insulting. Boris Johnson's a very charismatic individual. It doesn't make him a great leader. Shareholders is a bad word. You know, people see shareholders as the big fat cat bankers. And I was probably the typical over-exuberant, overconfident, slightly arrogant salesman. Because ultimately, the top line will grow and the bottom line will grow if we get everything else right. Ring the bell at the end of the week as the number one salesperson and go home and tell the girlfriend at the time that look at me, how amazing am I? Sometimes because you're the best at something doesn't make you a great leader. I come from a business that grew from 12 million to 30 million and failed. And if I'm honest, it's not the sort of thing that gets me out of bed. The world is a really tough place at the moment, and people can suffer in relative silence for a long time.
Without further ado, here's Daniel Astarita, the Managing Director of Kesslers London. One of the first questions I ask everyone who comes onto my podcast, really gives us a context behind who you are, is how have you got to the position you're currently at? And what were the key steps along the way that led to your success?
I think the truth is a lot of luck and some unfortunate circumstances is the honest truth. So my job title is Managing Director, and that's kind of a de facto job title because I had to recreate a 130-year-old business that had gone into administration. I was the sales director of it, and I watched 180 people lose their jobs. And I just thought that we could do it better. So I set about hashing a plan together to buy the business off the administrators and have a go at it. And I guess by doing that, I kind of had to inherit the job title as MD rather than it being anything I'd aspired to or was training towards. So I think, that it's a real landmark in my life, in my career, really. It sort of changed my outlook on a lot of things, watching that business that has been so successful for so long, struggled for 2 years, and then having to pick up the pieces. I think that's it gave me a really good grounding, hopefully a good grounding anyway. Others might disagree, but hopefully a good grounding into being a more rounded MD. I think if it had happened in a business that was successful or was just ticking along well, I wouldn't have been ready for it. I've come from a sales background, and I was probably the typical over-exuberant, overconfident, slightly arrogant salesman who didn't have a full appreciation of the sort of emotion and culture that was needed to be an MD.
It's interesting that you said that it was a 130-year-old business that you watched sort of collapse and go into administration. And then you said there are things we could do better. So along your way before it did collapse, were there things that you watched and said, I'm just not happy with that, but you just didn't speak up at that time? Or did you speak up?
Yeah, I think that's the big point. It had sold 5 years previous from family business into private equity. And I guess by virtue of being the best salesman in the business, I was made sales director. And, sometimes because you're the best at something doesn't make you a great leader. But it's kind of what happened to me. And I got put in a boardroom full of 50, 60-year-old white men as many boardrooms are. And I sat in there for 5 years, and for the first 2, 3 years said very little. And then the last 2 years I started to see it going wrong. And I did speak up, but I think me speaking up at the time was coming across as emotional immaturity. And I was in a room full of very experienced people, highly successful people. And I don't think I had the ability to communicate at a boardroom level the message that I was trying to get across. I think I was coming across as sort of like immature. And so when it all went wrong, I guess I wanted to do it, but I wanted to do it differently. I wanted to do it with a bit more integrity and a bit more, a bit more compassion, really. We'd let a lot of people down. The business was turning over 30 million, losing 3, but we were chasing the buck. Turnover for us was absolutely the objective. And working in sales, that's easy. You can chase turnover all day long, but not making money didn't seem to matter because the private equity was sort of plugging money into it, building up for this big sale. And at the back of COVID, retail didn't come back as quickly as everyone thought it would. They pulled the plug and we were left. My MD had been removed from the business 2 months previously. So I was the last statutory director in the business. They walked away and it was left up to me to make 108 people redundant and pick up the pieces from that. And I just think that watching the faces, watching people that are, through no fault of their own, were going to be let down 2 weeks before Christmas. We did it on the 14th of December. It really gave me the energy and the motivation to want to try and do it differently.
Yeah, I can imagine, like you said, you just pointed it out, like just before Christmas. But you being one of the most inexperienced people on that board, and then it's down to you to let them go. How did you prepare for that? How had you been prepared for that beforehand? Was there any training? Was there anything, like bits of advice given to you that prepared you to go into those meetings?
I'm not sure anything can prepare for that, if I'm honest. So no, the answer was there was no training. The administrators came in and it's a very cold process. And these are people that, in my case, I've worked with for 10 years and some of them had worked together for 30 years. And you hand out your letters and you're not really allowed to answer any questions. And I probably did it very badly because I did it with a tear in my eye but I stood in the room and watched the people exit and just decided that was what gave me the motivation to try. And because these people are working in an industry that doesn't really exist in London. So we're based in East London. Our industry exists in the Midlands, in Scotland, in Wales, where rental space is a lot cheaper because being in Stratford where we were at the time, our unit was costing a couple of £1 million a year. So they weren't going to go and use their skills in the same industry. They were going to go and have to stack shelves or drive vans. And I kind of felt like if I was going to do something, I had to do it for them. And for me, I'm not suggesting it was a benevolent communist action. I wanted to do something for me. We had a lot of relationships with a lot of customers in the business and I didn't want them to go to waste. And I just thought, if we have a go and we do it right and we over communicate with the staff, we keep telling them at every juncture where we are, we'll be okay, because good businesses can fail. There are some fabulous businesses out there that fail. But as long as they do it in the right way, you don't overstretch your creditors, you don't ask too much of people. And if it is going to go wrong, because these people lost their jobs 2 weeks before Christmas, they had no idea it was coming. So if we tell them where we are and they can make informed decisions about whether they want to come back and whether they want to stay with us, then we're going to do the right thing. And that helped me sleep at night, actually.
How long did that transition take from, the 2 weeks before Christmas to when you were able to try and bring people back into the business that you had brought out and taken over?
So we were quite fortunate because the industry shuts down sort of the week after. So we got the grace period of Christmas, the Christmas sort of New Year period. I was working Boxing Day. I was in the factory Boxing Day trying to pimp it out to anyone that would listen, investors, in private equities, private individuals, anybody that would help me purchase it from the administrators. But the whole process took 3 weeks from when we started trading New Co. Initially, there was only 6 of us. And then quite quickly, within probably 2 to 3 weeks, there was 22 of us. And then a month later, we were up to 60. And then fast forward now, we are 2.5 years on and we've got 100 people in the business. I'd say 60 of them were part of the old business that was let down out of that original 180 and 40 new people. And I think it's important that, as difficult as it was, you do reset and you've got to look at why the business didn't work. And of the 180 people, there's clearly too many people in the business and you need to reset your business to what's going to make money. And you need to bring in people from the outside that can offer different skills and different points of view and perspective. So we've got a real balance of the old and the new.
It's interesting what you said there as well, because as you're listing off some of those things, and your story, there are clear elements that I'm looking at that to me, I understand as leadership, but there's also clear elements that to me, I understand as management. So what is your understanding of the difference between leadership skills and leadership responsibilities and management skills and responsibilities?
So when we decided to come back, I quite quickly realized that there's a lot that I don't know. And I've got huge gaps in my personal portfolio of skills and attributes. And I needed to surround myself with people that were going to challenge me and push me and be my checks and balances, if you like. Because actually, if I was left to my own devices, I'd be too ambitious too quickly. And I needed to have people that were going to do some of the more, in my mind, tedious, but certainly more important work, making sure that we were doing all the right things. So for me, I consider myself a leader in terms of it's up to me to set a strategic vision, make sure we're on the right path, make sure that we are supporting people with their own personal developments to become the next version of leaders, to make sure that people feel, to set the tone of the culture, and to, I guess, to work on the macro of the business. And then I've got people that work on the management of the business, and they're absolutely as important as each other. But I don't think I have the skills to do both. So then you need people you make sure your ledgers are up to date, make sure your supplies are being paid, make sure your rent's paid, make sure your health and safety is in check. All that management of the business is so important, but it's not something that I've ever done before, have the experience to do. And if I'm honest, it's not the sort of thing that gets me out of bed. And therefore, if I concentrate on what I can do well, which is hopefully add value at the strategic level, then I surround myself with people that are really good at the management side.
So starting from ground zero,
yeah,
how did you build that team around you that sort of completes you and allows you to have that full skill set across the group of you? How did you get those people? How did you identify that talent and say, right, I need this, but actually I can bring this?
So it was quite customer centric, really. When you coming back into the new world, we needed to have some sales effectively. We needed to work with some customers. So we were very honest. So as soon as it happened, I was on the phone to the customers and said, this has gone wrong and we're really sorry. These are the reasons why it's gone wrong. But I'm going to try and do something on the other side. All I want from you is an opportunity to come and talk to you in 2 weeks' time when I've got something off the ground that I can come and show you. And I'm not expecting you to come back full force. I absolutely understand we've got to go through the whole process of onboarding again and reestablish your trust. But if I can get something, will you give me an audience? And I guess it was based on the customers' responses as to which customers responded, as to me sitting down and working out who that first wave of people were going to be in the team. So were these customers going to be manufacturing customers where I needed to have a factory, or were they going to be customers that allowed me just to buy everything from Europe? The truth of it was that most of the customers agreed to talk to us on the new world. So then we had to be slightly more cautious about numbers. So in the old world, Dan would have done X, Y, and Z. But now we need Dan to do a little bit more. So where do these people's skills sit? What more could they do in effectively what is a £30 million startup or £30 million failure that was effectively a phoenix trying to reestablish itself? Who are the people that could go above and beyond? So we looked at attitude. So we looked at the people that were going to come back willingly and understood what we went through, who was going to be willing to put in the extra hours and go above and beyond for us day one. And that was what we brought back. I mean, we called them the A team. It was the 6 of us. And then it really got extended quite quickly to 20, 22, I think. And then after that, we were really careful. So that was 22 people from the old business. And then after that, it was a real careful decision about who came back from the old business versus was it an external recruit, and did we go through an open recruitment process? Because if they weren't part of the original 22, why were they not part of the original 22? And therefore, do they make the cut? And some people did. And some people, unfortunately, we decided to go a different way.
So that really sort of forced you to learn and grow and sort of build that resilience of being like really cutthroat, that whole experience of not just going through the laying off people, but also then onboarding new people, selecting new people, because there may have been people that you had been friends with before that you actually had to go, actually, you're not quite the right person for us right now.
There absolutely was. There's people I've been on holiday with in the old business that we didn't take back. People I still see today and count as friends. And I guess, I mean, cutthroat's one word for it, but I think it was also about being fair to them. Because if we were to bring back people for the wrong reasons, it was going to fall down and everyone would be back in the same position as they were now, just with less credibility in the bank. So even though more people wanted to come back, I think it was about taking a balanced view whether it was right for them as well as being right for us, because if it doesn't work, we have to let them go in 2 months, 4 months' time. I think that looks poorly on their CV. It looks like they made the wrong choice as well. So yeah, I think cutthroat, it felt really tough. And it was the first time we've ever sat down and sort of really looked at measuring people against people. And that is quite a cold process. But I'd like to think we did it for the right reasons for both us and for them.
So from what you've given us so far, I've been writing down a couple of like key sort of attributes.
Okay.
These, I believe, this is what I take from you in terms of your values that you have personally.
Okay.
So some of the key things you pointed out were integrity, compassion, not just communication, but over communication. So communicating quite extensively.
Yes.
I also wrote down diversity because I think that must be something quite key, because you pointed out the fact that it was 50-year-old white men.
Yes.
As the board, and that was it. So I feel like diversity must be something that you have really embraced going into the new world, as you've called it. And attitude.
100%.
So is there anything else you might add to that which might channel your values that you have brought into the new world?
I don't think you can summarize it any better. That is absolutely perfect. I think compassion is probably one of the words we try and use as business. I think, I don't know what the word is, but we don't try to treat people as a cookie cutter. So there are different motivators and different reasons people get up and come to work. And it's taking the time to understand what each individual really wants out of us as an employer. So some people, it's about money, and it will always be about money, and that's absolutely fine. Money's a motivator. But money's a really crude motivator, and especially in the world today where you can go and earn a couple of pounds above minimum wage being a van driver. We need to see if we can go deeper than just money. Is it about the breadth of work? Is it about working hours? So having a really sort of spending a lot of time on almost semi-bespoke personal development plans, and whether it's working conditions or just trying to be more available to our staff. So we have an open door policy where I sit in an office with my ops director, and I'd say the door's open 90% of the day. And if the door's open, you can come and talk to us about anything. You can come and talk to us that the toilet rolls run out or the tea bags aren't there, or you can come and talk to us about you having a personal hardship issue, and we will genuinely try to help you because we want to be a compassionate employer.
How do you communicate that to your employees, other than the act that the door is open? When someone's newly onboarded, how do you make them feel like they could approach you? What are the steps that you actively try and do to make them feel involved?
So we close the business once a quarter, and we do something as a business, whether we go on a scavenger hunt or whether we go to the field and play cricket or something silly. So we spend more time together as a business doing things that are not business specific. And I think that gives people, it humanizes senior leaders in the business, because I might be making a fairy cake with the guy in the warehouse or something. And you've got people in the business that wouldn't come across each other if you don't do things like that. So whether the commercial director would ever speak to the guy in the warehouse, probably not, unless they're doing something collectively as a business together. We stand up in front of the business every single month and going to the point of over communicating. I tell people 99% of everything I can in this business. So I'll tell people what our turnover was, what our profitability was, what any staff vacancies we've got, or if we've made a decision to remove a member of the team for various reasons. It's only happened once, but we'll tell people why that's happened. So I don't think when someone new comes into the business, there's any value in me telling them that it's an open door policy. I think they need to hear it from the people on the shop floor. And it's about setting a tone right at the top from a cultural perspective that will feed down to everybody, and they will know. They'll see people doing it, and hopefully they can respond accordingly.
So do you believe that the culture you have been able to instill reflects those values that we've discussed?
Yeah, I think culture is an ever evolving thing. I think it's something that you can never be completely happy with. And I'm not going to sit here and say that if we had a unanimous engagement survey, which we're actually doing at the moment, that I'd have 100% engagement from 100 people in the team. I'm not that arrogant to think we're finished, but I think it's a 100% improvement on where it was as a culture, probably a 500% improvement from where it was. And we've got to continue to strive to do better and continue to evolve. The world's a fast changing place. We work a lot in retail. Retail's a really fast changing place. And we need to continue to evolve. We're investing more in training and development. And that's another thing, is working out individual training needs and what people's personal ambitions are. Because people, they might not want the job they've got forever, and they might want to go and work in the wood shop, or they might want to go and learn how to be a project manager, and investing in individuals on individual training journeys. Not everybody's going to be the MD. Unfortunately, that's just the way the world works. But it doesn't mean that people can't have aspirations to be better.
I like the way that it sounds to me as an external person, which someone listening to this podcast would also probably pick up, that the business before it failed was very profit driven, was very money driven, the income and the turnover was the center, and the people were just a mechanism to help that. Whereas you've changed it on its head from everything you've said, that it's a people focused business. It's about, can I develop the people? And the idea, I guess, is then that the profit and the turnover comes because we focus on the people. Is that right?
Absolutely right. We're not here running a charitable organization. We're here to deliver for all of our stakeholders, shareholders included. Shareholders is a bad word. People see shareholders as the big fat cat bankers. That isn't the case where we are. People are investing their life savings into us. It's people's pensions pot, and we owe them a return on investment. So we're absolutely committed to delivering at the bottom line as well. But my personal belief, and I think it's a belief shared by my leadership team, is that to do that, we invest in the people. We're going to do it with the people we've got in the business, and that's going to help us drive the turnover, but the profitability through, if they feel engaged, they're more likely to spot mistakes. They're more likely to add value in terms of improvements and making suggestions, rather than it all coming from me and the leadership team.
So you've got this training and development program that you've implemented, and obviously you've grown from the bottom up. You took that first A team in and you've brought it up, and eventually you got to 100 people now.
Yeah.
So how do you, as the top level, because that's effectively what you are, you and your directors, how do you ensure that every leader within your organization is working on training, developing the people below? You mentioned your personal development plans. Can you talk us through what actual strategy you put in place for that? Because everyone's different in every organization, so we can all learn from each other from that.
Yeah, of course. And I think I've done a couple of podcasts over the last 6 weeks, and really enjoying them. And in the build up to doing them, I listen to other people who come on. And I've just listened to your podcast with Vera, and I've actually just reached out to Vera on LinkedIn and said, I listened to it. I loved it. You're amazing. And so in answer to your question, I'm absolutely personally still on this journey of being a better leader. I don't think I'm finished, and we're not completely finished with the personal development piece that we want to get right. However, what we do is weekly we have our senior leadership team meeting, and our SMT, it's a closed door meeting, and job titles are off the table. So yes, my job title is MD, and in a hierarchical structure, I sit at the top of the chain. But in that meeting, I don't care. You can call me anything you want, and we can argue and we can debate, because job titles aren't important. I've got huge gaps in my personal CV to be an MD. And there are other people. I am still the youngest member of my SMT. Therefore, there's another 6 people in there with more experience than me in different areas of the business. And they can all add value to me personally. I need to listen to them, and we need to debate things. How do we make sure it's happening and it's distilled? So we have a SMT, like I spoke about. We also have an MMT, so middle management team, where more members of the business come in. We have a strategic 3-year plan for the business for our growth. And part of that growth, it breaks down into individual buckets of success. So how is commercial adding to the overall success of the business? How is services adding? How's finance adding? What are your milestones to get us where we want to be in 3 years' time? And we break that into quarterly objectives. And part of those quarterly objectives are training and development targets for the members of the team. So how many of your team have been on this particular training course? How many members of your team have had their KPIs measured? And if you are behind in your strategic bridge, then you are more carefully managed by myself or my ops director in terms of how we achieve what we need to achieve. Because we all went away for a day. We took the management team out to a hotel in Hertfordshire, and we all signed up to what we're going to try and achieve over the next 3 years. And therefore, if we're not doing that, you're letting down everyone else in the business. So creating this culture where we're all in it together, and every member of middle management, which is probably 20 people of the 100, have got a role to play in that. And by putting that sort of inferred responsibility on everybody's pulling for the overall success of the business, this 3-year plan, then it's incumbent upon them to make sure that their 5, 6, 10 members of their team are being developed as well.
How do you balance, because you mentioned about like everyone has their own individual targets of growth and development.
Yeah.
How do you guys then balance the two pots, which is what you would like them to develop because you see a certain area of weakness that they could develop versus what they want to develop? Do you allow them to lead their own? Do you lead it a bit? Is it sort of like a give and take?
I think it has to be, we have to share with them the overall strategic vision for the business. My job is to set the tone and set the pace and set the vision. And hopefully it's their job to understand where they fit into that. I don't think there's any value in telling people what they're going to be. Now, I'd like to think I'm a reasonably good salesperson and talking to people and helping, selling, whether I'm selling product or I'm selling career ambitions, helping people understand their role in that. But ultimately, they have to come along willingly and they have to see that. And if people have got specific ambitions for themselves, regardless of whether I think that's the wrong thing for them, it isn't up to me to dictate that. It's up to me to enable them to try. And if they fall over, then I pick the pieces up. Because we're not scared to fail. I think I spent a lot of time reading about Silicon Valley, reading about these big tech companies and how how well they've done and why they've done so well. And failure in the technology world is really not a bad word. So we can't be scared to fail. We have to be almost encouraging failure because it means we tried something and we learn from it and then we try something new. So we have the strategic plan, and that's the overall 3-year ambition won't change. But the steps can change. The steps can be agile enough to, retail's too fast paced for us to be too rigid for 3 years. And if something changes, we change and we adapt accordingly. And it might be that people's development plans need to do the same.
I love what you said there about not scared to fail and the way Silicon Valley works. And it sort of reminds me of the idea of failing forwards, this idea that you've tried something and you've learned something. So even if you've failed 1,000,000 times, rather than thinking we failed 1,000,000 times, it's well, we worked out 1,000,000 ways not to do it. That means we got one less opportunity of failing next time. So how do you, when you stand up in front of everyone, how do you communicate this idea that we're not, there's no fear of failure here? Go out, try something new, come back, let us know if it doesn't work, if it does work. How do you encourage them to just experiment with whatever it is that they're doing in their role?
First of all, I'm going to steal failing forwards as a term, if you don't mind, because I've never heard it before and I love it. I'm going to absolutely use that next time I talk. Again, I think it comes back down to culture. I think, I can say anything. I can stand up in front of people and literally say, we've got £1 billion in the bank, go and spend. And actually, if that's not the reality, it doesn't mean anything. It has to come down to their belief that if you make a mistake, if we try something, the only person's shoulders is on its mine, because I've allowed you to make that mistake. I've either given you too much latitude or not enough support. It's on me. So if you've got an idea and we sit down together and you go out and you try it, fantastic. I give you all the credit in the world for that. If you're sitting on your hands and you've got all these ideas, but you're not bringing them to the table, again, it's on me because you don't feel like you can. And if I continue to set the culture right, most people are going to come forward. If you choose not to, okay, that's fine. Not everybody wants to be a trailblazer. Some people want to come to work and do their job, and they'll go off and be a leader in their own personal life. They might lead a football team or a scout troop, and that's fine. But we need to recognize the rising stars. We need to recognize the people that are our top performers. We need to make sure that the people that are coming to the table with good, bad ideas are not discouraged from doing that. And I think it goes back to the open door culture and making sure that we're available to people.
That's a fantastic leadership approach from just looking at it. From what you said there is failure lands on you, but you also said that you give credit for people who come forward with ideas and if it's successful. So it's the idea that I'm giving you the success if it works, but I take the failure if it fails.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic culture that you've instilled there.
Yeah, and I guess that's probably the biggest journey that I've been on and I continue to be on from where I was as a salesman, where success is all mine. If I'm the best salesman in the business, I should be lauded and celebrated and paid all the commission in the world for being the best at what I do. And even if I've sold something and it's rubbish and the business can't deliver it and we're going to fail and I've set everyone else up to fail, laud me, I'm the best salesman in the world. Actually, if you put enough bad things into your business is going to fall over. So that's the sort of the 180 personal journey that I've had to go on into this new role as MD.
It's interesting something you said there, because it's something that also links with Vera's podcast as well, because she comes from a sales background as well.
Yeah.
Something that both of you have in common is you started out in sales and then you've come towards leadership, and you identified it very much. Sales is about me hitting my targets. It's very much that. So do you think your background in sales was a benefit to your leadership journey, or do you think actually it may have held you back in some respects?
I think she's much more erudite than me, and I think she'd probably hate being compared to me. She's really leading I think it was a £300 million turnover business, and I've got a £15 million one. But I think it has its benefits, because I think good salespeople are ambitious, and I think we often shoot for the stars, and we want to set the world alight. I think where it becomes dangerous is if you don't recognize that in yourself. And then if you had a team of salespeople running a business, I think it fails. I think salespeople can be great leaders. Often charisma is a word often linked to salespeople. But if you don't have somebody calling you an idiot when you're being an idiot, and you don't have somebody calling you out, putting your checks and balances in place, and you're going to fall over. So I think I take the benefits, but the journey that I've had to go on to become a more rounded MD is probably the biggest journey in my working career.
I guess when you were in sales, you would have been surrounded by people who are very similar to you. You're all competitive against each other.
Yeah, we were.
How did you learn to change from that competitiveness to suddenly, like you said, you've got to surround yourself with people that are going to put you in check and therefore have different skill sets? How did you make that mental switch in your head?
Well, I guess when I was working in sales, that was exactly what it was like. It was highly competitive. And I loved it. I loved the cutthroat nature of it. I loved being able to metaphorically ring the bell at the end of the week as the number one salesperson and go home and tell the girlfriend at the time that look at me, how amazing am I? When I was asked to be sales director, I'm naturally quite an inquisitive person. And so I guess my journey in that started even when I was a sales director, where I tried to create a sales team rather than a group of sales individuals. So I took away the individual remuneration and I bucketed it into retail and beauty and into different pots. So actually there was a bit more collective responsibility, because ultimately when you're a sales director, you're responsible for the top line sales number rather than your individuals. And if you've got a hyper competitive nature, actually that can be quite detrimental to your sales turnover, because people are fighting for the space in the factory and you're clogging up various other departments with work that might not be as value add as other work in the queue behind you. So we tried to take away some of that sort of Wolf of Wall Street culture that would have existed 7 or 8 years ago in the first 3 years being a sales director. And then when I became MD, it worked. We grew top line sales from 12 to 30 million. Look at us, what an amazing sales team we were. The fact we weren't making any money was slightly more difficult, but in a world of private equity, it wasn't really our responsibility to make money. That was other people's jobs. And being an MD, it was just about applying the same culture of the team ethos into 6 or 7 other departments. So how do we measure our success? Well, we measure it. We don't care what the top line is. We look at the bottom line. We measure it through our staff engagement, through our staff retention, from our customer growth, organic growth. Is the market coming towards us? So do people want to work with us? So we measure it very differently, because ultimately the top line will grow and the bottom line will grow if we get everything else right.
You identify charisma as well as something that can come across, and that charisma, that being able to sell down the phone, suddenly becomes you standing in front of a group of people and then sharing a vision. That charisma, an ability to do that, is that something that you would say is a personal strength for you, ability to tell that story and get people bought into it?
Yeah, I think I'd probably list it as one of very few strengths I have. But yeah, I think I've always been able to, I've never been particularly shy or nervous about standing in front of people, whether it's going back to school and, assemblies as captains of various sports teams. And so, yeah, I guess it is. I'm cautious of being too much in that these days. And that I think you can get amazing people with incredible charisma. Boris Johnson's a very charismatic individual. It doesn't make him a great leader. So it's one of the it's one of the key strengths, but I pull on it a lot less than I used to, because I think you can be seen as seen through. We're all a bit more sophisticated than we used to be. I reference Wolf of Wall Street now. I don't think you'd have that anymore. I think people are more attuned to charisma and salesmanship and all of that. I think you need more strings to your bow.
So I guess that's that genuineness to it rather than just being charismatic.
It's a great word. I use the word authenticity, but genuineness, absolutely. Yeah. People want to talk to people that they like and people that are engaging and got interesting stories to tell. But if there's no substance behind it, if I place my first order and you don't deliver it on time because everything you told me is a load of lies, my credibility's gone. You're not going to repeat that. So my job is to, I guess, not lose the charisma, but add more skills to that, more of a financial understanding, a commercial understanding, being more intuitive as well. I guess is a skill that often you're either charismatic or you're intuitive, and I think you need to be a bit of both.
Did you know that Lambda Solutions is your gateway to unlocking the secrets of effective leadership, as well as exploring leadership psychology? We not only have this podcast where we explore some of the most topical concepts within leadership and connect you with the wisdom and experience of a community of leaders, we also have a growing treasure trove of leadership wisdom just waiting to be discovered. I would love to invite you to explore the Lambda Library, our very own hub of thought-provoking articles and blogs, carefully crafted to spark your imagination, challenge your thinking, and ignite your leadership potential. The best part? It's completely free, and we are continually looking to update our content to keep you engaged and informed. It's all part of our dynamic journey of learning, and we can't wait for you to join us. Whether you're a budding leader, a seasoned professional, or simply looking to enhance your leadership skills, our content caters to your growth. We would also like to extend our hand. If you have a message to share and would like to submit an article to our library, simply get in touch through the contact form on our website. We would love to add your wisdom to our leadership library. Are you ready to begin your exploration? Simply visit our website at www.thelambda.co.uk and navigate to the Lambda Library. You'll find our growing library of leadership articles waiting for you. You can then add us to your bookmarks to supplement your sources of consistent, high-quality leadership content. Discover insights, uncover strategies, and elevate your leadership game. So through your journey then from sales through to sales director, I guess you would have had to mature as a character, as a person, and you would have had to find value, and the thing that you enjoy about your job would have changed. So can you run us through that journey of what you originally found most rewarding about your job to now, and then why that maybe changed?
Yeah, I think for the first 10 years, it's a really crude answer in that I think most people work in sales for the money and the ability to individually affect what you take home. There were times being in sales, at 24, I was earning more money than I'm earning now if I had a really great commission month. And that allowed me to do some fun things, and it allowed me to buy stupid things. So I guess the really crude answer to my early career was that purely was money.
Mm.
Now it's really different. I'm married, I've got 2 children. Now it's about self-actualization. It's about being proud. My wife's a great grounding for me, because every time I slip back or regress into being a little bit showy or a little bit salesmanship, she'll call me out on it. She's got no time for I was going to swear. She's got no time for that part of me.
Your bravado.
Bravado, that's a lovely word, but much better word than I was going to use. She just sees straight through it. And so she's much more about, how am I treating her? How am I treating my children? And that isn't about what am I buying them. It's about how much my love and affection is. But it's the same type of skills, the same sort of soft skills that make me enjoy work. So we went on a real journey to get our son, 5 years of IVF, real hardship, real emotional turmoil. And then once we got him, the absolute gratification and amazing experience that was, I think at the same time as going through the administration and the redundancies, I've just come out of it a more, I'd like to think, genuine, authentic person, because it isn't a show. Like I think you can pretend to do this stuff for a couple of months, but actually it's what gets me up in the morning. We've just given everybody 2 hours off for the leap year. We sent it to 100 people. We've had about 25 emails in today. Thank you. This is amazing. It's 2 hours. I got the real buzz by reading the emails and the thanks for doing that. And I was like, wow, this is really awesome. This is great. So I think I get more gratification out of other people's happiness and being able to directly affect that. So knowing that we've created something that is having a real meaningful difference in people's lives, and people want to work here. People are telling their friends about applying for jobs and things like that here. And I get really infused by that.
I guess it's that reputation, but it's actually an honest reputation. It's not just chasing, the dollar bill, the pound sign. It's actually that reputation that you've built into the business as well.
Yeah, I think we've got to continue to modify it and evolve. We're not finished. We are absolutely on a journey. We're 2 years old. I'm very conscious that at 2 years old, you don't have an amazing business at 2 years old. You can get lucky. And we've got to do this for 5 years and 10 years, and we've got to get it ingrained. And I've got to be able to retire and give it to the next MD in 15 years' time, and it be a forever thing rather than this just short-term fix. So we're really happy with where we are, but we've got to continue it. We've got to get into the rhythm of it now.
So it's interesting a minute ago as well that you transitioned a little bit between your home life and your work life, and like what you find and what actually rewards you in both of those. And what's interesting is something I've played around with, the last few months, is the idea of love languages and how they actually transition into the workplace. So the things that we as individuals look for recognition. So you identified one, you said about like gifts, like things you buy, but then there's also time you spend with individuals and, physical touch. That's quite a hard one in the workplace, but that sort of thing, the shaking of the hand, if you like, the sort of public, reward of congratulations in front of everyone. So how much of that sort of skill set have you intuitively learned? Because it sounds like you guys do it very well at your business. How much of that have you learned as you've gone into leadership, that actually every single individual recognizes recognition differently, and we just got to know each individual to be able to tell them, you're doing a great job in the language they understand?
Yeah, I completely agree. We have an employee of the month. We basically reward everybody. So we're asking for people to feed in who they think is that, and we make sure that they get a nice bonus and they get to stand up in front of the whole business and take the accolades of that. We have other things called positivity post boxes. So we've got 6 of them around the business where people can post positive messages about their colleagues, and we read them out. I guess it all comes back to culture, to doing the right thing consistently. And when things get tough, you double down. Rather than when things get tough, you stop thinking about your development budget or your training budget, or you stop thinking about closing the factory early to go and get an ice cream. That's when you double down, because If people can see you when you're at your worst as a business, they're much more inclined to go the extra mile for you. And I think we just kind of lay ourselves bare and we let people come and help us when we need to. So I don't try to understand how the 5-axis CNC machine works. I've got 3 people out there. I don't go and try to tell them how to do their jobs. I want to understand from them how they do their jobs. So it's never been about me going out and setting a new process or me going out and telling them that this is the shift pattern that's going to work. It's about me listening and then most of the time enforcing or implementing what they're telling me should be done. Because I'm not going to learn in the next 5 years what they've learned in the last 50 years as a collective of how to do something. So I guess it's about me being slightly vulnerable to everybody and them seeing that and then feeling that their role is to help me and therefore help the business in my vulnerability.
So culture is a big thing, obviously, and it starts with you. And my understanding of culture and the way that I sort of define culture is the way that everyone thinks, the way that everyone acts with each other, and how we interact with each other. So it's the thinking, the acting, and the interacting. From what you've said, it very much feels like you are displaying the actions that you want from everyone. You are communicating the words and the language and the way that we interact with each other. That's really key from you and then from everyone in your management team. So a lot of people, when they think of, oh, we need to improve the culture, it's like the tick box exercise. Oh, we'll just, put a well-being poster up and everyone will feel better.
Yeah.
What other things that you've put in place? Because you said about the post box, what things have you done for well-being? What things have you done for mental health? What things have you done just to make sure that we're embracing this new world, like you said? Because it's very different, the workplace now, than it used to be pre-COVID. So what things have you guys put in place to help that out?
Okay, so we've got some in-house mental wellbeing champions, so people that have gone on government accredited courses who are available to any member of the team, and they can book in one-to-one sessions confidentially. The open door policy, people will come and talk to us. So I mentioned we've got a hardship fund that is accessible to people, so people can, if for whatever reason, rent's gone up or the TV's broke, they can come and talk to us about whether they can have a short-term loan from the business to be able to support them, because I think the world is a really tough place at the moment and people can suffer in relative silence for a long time, and then some horrible things can happen, not in the work life, but in my personal life. I've seen things that have been absolutely awful that have happened to people that if you just sat down and had a conversation with them, then you could have helped them. And so again, going back to being accessible, but not just us, we can have an open door policy, but people can see the job title and still be a bit intimidated by that, especially if you're new into the business. So it's about making more people more accessible. So having mental health champions in the business, we've got 2 of those. And small things, we're closing the factory on the leap year 2 hours early. We close the factory once a quarter. We go and have ice cream together or go and play cricket. And that's really helpful because you end up having these conversations with people that you wouldn't have otherwise. But again, I guess the other answer is that we're still learning to be better. So we're still, as leaders, on our own personal development course. We're trying to absorb knowledge. We're trying to look at best practice. And I was asked why I'm doing a podcast. And I said, well, I love talking to people. And so the brief conversation we've had, you've said some things that I haven't thought about, failing forward. So for me, it's about my own personal development as well. And how do I help my business be better by talking to other people in probably different spaces to mine, but have got the same values to add. So we're doing a lot, but we can do a lot more. And I guess it's about being open to do more as well. So we don't pretend that we're finished. We don't pretend that having a 2-hour close on a leap year is the end of everyone's fine. We need to continue to do more and listen. And if people come to talk to us or talk to other people in the business and say, I really wish we had our birthdays as holiday, because that's what Facebook do. They give everyone their birthday off. This is a real example. And that happened a year ago. We listened, we looked at it, we costed it. And then a month later, we said, okay, as a new policy, from now, everybody gets an extra day's holiday a year, which is your birthday. You can take your birthday off. We don't want to see you go out and enjoy it. So it's about for us continuing to add to the long list of things that we've already got in place by learning what else is out there in the industry and what other people are doing really well.
I do love what you said there, because it shows a humbleness as a leadership group that actually we haven't got it right. we are open to suggestions. And it's the thing that I absolutely hate is that when people say, well, we've always done it that way, so we're just going to keep doing it that way.
Yes.
And you have got this idea that you have an idea, come to us, because I'm willing to change anything as long as it's, for the benefit of everyone. And I think that is something that everyone should be listening, should be going, okay, we should do that as well.
It's my absolute bugbear. This is what we've always done. So picking up a business that was 130 years old, this is what we've always done was one of the most commonly muttered phrases in our new business. And I was like, yeah, we bought some stock and we've bought a name. We haven't bought the culture. We haven't bought anything else. We've got the opportunity now to reset, and everything we've always done is off the table. Let's restart. Other than the name of the business, everything else is up for grabs. So I don't want to hear it. And for the first 3 or 4 months, it was one of the things that really triggered me. So I'd hear it. I'd hear, oh, this supplier, I think, no, that isn't us anymore. We are now this person. And I would get quite emotionally animated about hearing this is what we've always done. And it's one of the things I've had to adjust as a leader on is the amount of battles that I go into, because coming from a sales, I have the potential to be a little bit loose with the words and a little bit over animated and a little bit dramatic when things don't quite go my way. And I've had to really hone in on what matters. And sometimes I can feel myself about to go, and I'll pause and go, I'm going to let this one go, because actually it loses effect. So if I'm going every week about the smallest little things, then when there's something I really need to go at, no one cares, because it's just Dan having another rant. So now when I get slightly more animated about something, it's usually because I'm really passionate about it.
So the example I always use when it's like, why should we adapt and change things, is the whole Blockbuster idea. That Blockbusters just thought, oh, people are always going to come and get a movie. But now they're out of business. They pivoted too late and Netflix took over because they came along, and Blockbuster looked at them and went, nah, that's never going to take off. And look what happened now. So, things should be looked at and reviewed on a regular basis, because you don't want to be the one left behind by someone else who's doing it.
No, I mean, it's a great real-time example of that is the Body Shop at the moment. So we work in retail. My business is a retail manufacturing business. We create retail space, and retail is going through this huge transformation globally. And what was going to happen to retail is accelerated post-COVID. So we as a business, from the fundamentals of what we do, is about reacting to the changes in retail and trying to be at the forefront of helping our retailers create interesting spaces and be innovative. Because if they don't react, and if they don't change, they're going to be out of business, i.e. the Body Shop or Toys R Us or Matalan. I've got some horror stories from the UK high street. But how can we do that if we're not doing it in our own business? So how can we be a responsible supplier and help our customers be at the forefront and being able to be in the knowledge of all the changes that are happening in their industry if we're not prepared to change and adapt to our own business? And I think that's my considered argument to when anyone says this is what we've always done. And I suppose I use my considered argument more than I used to use it, because I used to use a bit more of a dramatic over exaggeration to that response.
Unlock your leadership potential with personalised one-to-one coaching from Lambda Solutions. Take the first step to empowering yourself to overcome any challenges and lead your team to new heights. Our coaching services provide consistent support tailored to your goals and challenges, guiding you through the uncertainty and leading to growth. But that's not all we offer. Our consultancy services extend beyond coaching, encompassing a comprehensive approach to leadership development. Explore our bespoke consultancy packages, which include coaching as a fundamental component. Or if you're seeking something even more tailored, contact us directly through our website to build a solution perfectly suited to your organization's needs. Visit www.thelambda.co.uk to discover how Lambda Solutions can help you to reach your leadership potential. Together, let's learn, grow, and elevate your organization to a new level of success. So you actually interestingly said that you hinted at you had, when you were at school and stuff, you led sports teams, and so you must have a sports background.
Yeah. I'm basically a failed sportsman. Yeah, so you asked how I got here. I got here because I went to university and I was playing semi-professional football, and I went to Australia in my gap year to do on my sandwich course actually, to play semi-professional football and basically work in the football club in the daytime, and play football. I broke my ankle in my second game, and the football club said, "We don't need you to work here. If you can't play, you're no good to us. Just we'll sign off your whole year is finished. Just go and have fun." And I went and had a couple of weeks in Australia, and then came home and had 9 months to do nothing. And my dad got the hump with me, so he sent me to work in a factory doing exactly what I do now, packing boxes for 9 months. And I loved it. I really, really loved it, and went back every really week, every half term to earn a bit of pocket money. But yeah, football was my second sport that I tried to be good at. I used to be an athlete. I ran for England a couple of times. I kept losing to Mo Farah, so I gave up, got bored. They said the Olympics was going to be in Stratford, and that was what I was training towards. And I thought, I don't want to go to Stratford. If it's not LA or Sydney, I'm not interested. And then I ended up working in Stratford for 15 years in my job. I play rugby now at a terrible level, and I'm not very good, but I love sport. I love competitive sport. And I think it's given me a lot of really good positive experiences at whatever level it is. I think sport is something that can teach us a lot of lessons.
I was going to ask what lessons, because obviously there's leadership lessons and then there's business lessons, and they kind of, I can see where both come from, but can you share what lessons you think, what key lessons you think you've learned from your life of sport?
I think motivation is the big one. So I was captain of every football team I went into, and it was never because I was the best player. I never was the best player. I worked the hardest. Coming from an athletics background, I was probably the fittest, and I could get around the pitch, and I'd run through brick walls and I'd tackle anybody. Never technically very good, but I was always wanting people to work that bit harder. So if anyone's a rugby fan, Owen Farrell, England rugby captain, if you watch him on the pitch, he is constantly motivating his players to get up and tackle the next person. No matter how tired you are, no matter how much it hurts, you get up and you go again. So I guess motivation is the one for me, biggest one. And I think there's the things about communication. Not everybody wants to be shouted at and barked at. Sometimes an arm around the shoulder, sometimes a fist bump, is the way that you're going to get the best out of people. I think you learn a lot in the pub afterwards as well. So rugby is a great sport. It teaches you that you can have adversity and you can have disputes and arguments, but actually afterwards you walk into the bar and you have a beer together, and you don't need to hate everybody because they've got a difference of opinion. So accepting people and accepting people's, I'm going to use the word inadequacies. I'm sure there's a better word than that, but not everybody's a global superstar. People have limitations, whether it's physical limitations or cognitive limitations, but that doesn't mean they can't add tremendous value doing the right thing. You know, I had technical limitations in my football. I had no left foot, but I could get around the pitch a lot better. So if you put someone that was technically good next to me, you had a decent centre midfield. So I guess those probably be the three that I'd pick out.
I mean, as you went through that, I picked out 5.
Oh, okay.
You said motivation, but in and amongst your motivation, which was interesting, was the idea of getting back up and going again. So to me, that's resilience as well. So you got the motivation and resilience.
Yeah.
Communication, you said key. The relationship, you said relationship off the pitch. I think that really translates into the workplace, doesn't it? Because it's knowing the individuals outside of the workplace as well as inside. I think if we go back to the 80s, 90s, it was all about, you know, you come to work, you work hard, you go home. But now it's very much leaders are expected to know a little bit more about what's going on in the personal lives, because if they're going through a divorce, you need to know that and you need to accommodate that within the workplace, because there's going to be difficulties that come with that. And then you said valuing individuality and what people can bring. So there's 5 things there: motivation, resilience, communication, that relationship outside of the office, and then individuality.
You're making me sound much more intelligent than I actually am. So I appreciate it, Chris. Thank you.
No.
Yeah, you're actually right about the personal circumstances, though. So I went through 5 years of IVF, and that's a really, really tough journey. And that was probably the first time that I'd ever had to take some personal time off work when it didn't work, or I had to go ask for some compassionate leave to go to a medical appointment. And I've never taken a sick day before. And I always kind of looked at that as people being offered as a bit of a weakness. And actually, who am I to say that? I don't know what people have got going on in their life. And actually, if I haven't taken the time to understand that, then that's on me. That's on my shoulders. That makes me a weak leader. So we've got people going through IVF. We've got people that are going through separations. I've got probably 40 people where English isn't their first language in this business. So I've got 20 different nationalities working out of the 100. I don't understand all the various cultural things people have got going on. I do know that we've got Ramadan coming off, and I've got 5 people that are going to be fasting for a month. I can't imagine fasting for a month. I'm a big foodie. I love my food, and the personal commitment that they've got to go through, that's a new experience for me. So what can I do as an employer to help them? Well, you can work from home for 3 days a week, because actually, if you're not eating, you're not getting your calories, you're not getting your energy in. So I want you to be as efficient as you possibly can be, and I want you to appreciate me as an employer. So let's adapt the working day to suit you. And what I can do for them might be very different to what I'm going to do for somebody else that's got a different cultural holiday. Or I've got people that English wasn't their first language that we're helping on English courses because actually they want to be better. So I don't necessarily need them to be able to speak perfect English. So it isn't going to be a direct help to me, but it's going to help them in their personal life. It's going to help them with their banking situation, or it's going to help them with getting a British passport in a few years' time. So by helping them help themselves outside of work, I'm hoping that I'm going to get the value back tenfold as a commitment from them.
Is that individual investment that you've talked about, the development programs that you have?
It is. One size does not fit all. I think that's the key. I think, you have to take the time as a leader to be aware of individuals' motivations and challenges, and they're different. And some people you can help with paying them a bit more money, but most people are more complicated than that.
I do love what I'm hearing there in terms of about leading the individuals. If I just go into the future now, let's say, for example, your organization grows and grows and you go from 100, let's say you get to 1,000 employers, let's say you start getting big. What challenges do you think comes in from that growth, from the model you currently have to a model for a bigger organization?
I have a huge amount of sympathy for, again, going back to working in retail. Some of our customers are FTSE 100 customers, global retailers with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of employees across the globe. I do have a huge, I guess, sympathy for people when, you read the media about what it's like to work in a Tesco warehouse, or what it might be like. I think John Lewis are talking about what it's like for John Lewis staff at the moment. They might be striking and things like that. And I do think it's hard. I don't think there's an absolute answer. I think, again, I'll come back to the really boring answer that you have to continue to double down when it gets tough. You have to set the tone right from a cultural level, and you have to bring people in. So if we were to go from 100 to 1,000, we're going to need 5 more directors, let's say that. Those directors need to be coming into their interviews and their performance evaluations with us to come in and talk about getting a job with our organization. And what I want to hear from them as potential new leaders in my business is not necessarily the hard data that they've been able to achieve in their careers. I want to hear about the emotional commitments and relationships that they've had with the staff that they've helped develop and evolve. I want to hear about their experience of setting culture. So I need to bring in, if we have 100 to 1,000, we have 5 new directors. We need 5 new people that have got experience in working in businesses with cultures that we are trying to aspire to. So we should be continuing to look at the gaps in our own personal business and bringing people to support that, but still with our cultural aspirations at the forefront of that process. Again, just double down. Like, when it gets tough, we go harder. We become more compassionate. We become more committed to it, because if we believe in it, we believe in it forever, not just when the wind's blowing in our direction.
Is that a journey that you're thinking of going on, that growth, or are you happy with the size of your business at the moment and establishing that?
So there's 2 answers to that. So we're very happy as a business where we are. I come from a business that grew from 12 million to 30 million and failed. So when we reset the business, we decided that we wanted to get back. We come too far away from what we were really good at. We started going into areas that we didn't understand. We started doing things in Germany with different tax laws. we started bringing more product in from China with different commercial regulations that we didn't really understand, but we thought we could make more money. So we absolutely want to grow this business. I want to work for an ambitious business for various reasons, for my own personal benefit, for the enjoyment of the staff and remunerating people, but tempered by the fact that we want to grow the right way. So are we growing, doing what we understand? Yes, great. Can we grow by doing things we don't understand? Yeah, but we're going to fall off a cliff. So let's go and understand it first. Let's take the time, whether that's a year, whether it's 2 years, to understand the market we're trying to attack. Because what we can't do is fail on the core of the business. The 15 million pounds that we've created is much more important than an incremental 2 that might cost us the 15 if we get it wrong. So yes, we want to grow, but we're being really careful about how we do that and what markets we do that in.
If I'm challenging your thinking a little bit here, which...
Please.
Do you think there's an element of cautiousness that comes obviously from the previous experience of failure that could become a detriment if you were overcautious?
So absolutely, yes. Absolutely, it could do. I think I'm naturally ambitious. I am naturally an ambitious person, and we've grown the business for the last 2 years and we'll grow it again this year. So we are on a growth journey. But if we were arrogant enough not to learn the lessons of the old business, then I don't think we deserve to be where we are today. I don't think we deserve to be talking to you or running a business, because if you can't learn lessons from a 130-year-old failure, or from leaving creditors with £5 million of bills and watching sole traders go out of business because you're not paying them, then you shouldn't start leading a business anymore. So it could, it shouldn't, and we don't want it to, but I refuse to make 100 people redundant. I refuse to watch 3 businesses not trade because we didn't pay them anymore. So my ambition is still there. It's just tempered. It's not to say we don't want to grow. We're just going to grow in the right way. We're going to grow by helping retailers be better. We're not going to go into markets where we don't understand the tax laws. So we want to do more of what we do, and we do it well, but not more of what we don't understand.
So it's cautious, but not too slow, but it is continued.
Oh, not slow. No. And I think it's considered. That's the other word. So if we decide that we want to go into Germany in a market because that's where the real growth is, then let's go and hire a German-speaking tax lawyer who's going to help us do it. We're not going to do that, by the way, so I don't need any applications from tax lawyers. If that's the market we're going to go into, it's part of our 3-year strategic plan, and it's been qualified by our MMT. Let's go and recruit in that position. Let's invest some of the profit that we're making into that growth, and we do it in the right way. So we put the foundations in place, and then we'll go and do it. And once we're ready, we can unleash and we can go full throttle. We've got no issue with that. We'll take the reins off. But if we're doing it for the wrong reasons, where we're chasing a buck, that's just arrogance that I'd like to think we've learned our lessons from.
So it sounds to me like you've got a model of internal growth before external sort of exploration, rather than before it was just grab onto everything and just hope it works.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good way of putting it. Absolutely. We establish the foundations. We put the people in the right jobs. We put the training in, going back to the Silicon Valley and the test scenarios and the amount of testing that's done in a new platform or a small update to a website, how long that goes for testing. And then it goes and then it takes off. I'm not trying to be Amazon, but I think we can learn our lessons from these hugely successful tech businesses in any industry.
So going back to some ideas and stuff, like, have you established any form of coaching culture at all? Have you heard of coaching? Have you had coaching yourself? Have you had people within your organization that have sought out coaching at all?
So the old business, and I probably spent a long time going at the old business and how bad it was. One of the best things it did for me personally was it afforded me the opportunity to have some one-to-one coaching. They did it because they didn't like the way I spoke. They thought I spoke too Essex and they wanted me to polish up on my business communication skills. And the coach basically said, this is my brief, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to do some proper coaching. And he was fantastic. He spent a lot of time with me looking at self-awareness and looking at how, because I spoke to him about why I wasn't able to land the messages that I thought I wanted to land in these meetings with all these people that thought they knew better. And we continued to double down on making the same mistakes, and why I was not being perceived as the expert in the room. And we were on a 12-week course and the business went into administration after 6 weeks. So I never got to finish it. But it was some of the best hours I've spent in my career. It was really, really interesting. And it was all about taking myself out of my body and watching myself back and watching how other people are perceiving you. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. And I've afforded the same opportunity to 4 of my management team last year, because I think it's really valuable. And we'll go again. I absolutely want to go again personally and individually. And I want my ops director to experience it. Hasn't done it yet. So yes, we've done some. We've done a really complicated factory move last year, which consumed a lot of bandwidth. But this year, we're on a growth plan, but we're on a personal growth plan and a top line growth plan as well. And part of that personal development is absolutely invested in us as a leadership team, because how can we be effective leaders and promote all the development of our staff if we're not at the top of our game?
So in terms of your coaching that you experienced then, were you quite resistant to it when it was sold to you?
Yeah. Hated it. Thought it was insulting. I went in and I basically said to him, I don't want to be here. This is a joke. I've been working for 10 years, and if people don't like the way I talk, then they could do one. And he was quite taken back, because he basically said, I would never have taken this brief on the way it's been written to you. There was a bit of a conflict there. And we kind of galvanized around each other, because he was like, this is wrong. You should be doing this. I was like, great. So we ended up just saying, let's just have a chat. Let's just talk, just talk about football. And then we ended up getting into a coaching session without me even knowing I was being coached. And I walked away from the first session and thought, that was pretty good, actually. How can let's go back and do it again. So the second session, we basically devised our own synopsis, our own brief. And we spent the next 4 sessions doing that. And it was really genuinely probably the best thing the old business did for me. I loved it.
So I describe coaching as like, you take someone, imagine like a swan on a river, and like it looks like they're doing fine, but actually they're just literally just surviving. And it's taking them out of the river and going, okay, look back at that river. How could you make progress? Now you've slowed down, you're looking at your journey. And you said about like watching yourself and observing yourself. And sometimes when you're in that really fast pace, you can't see the problems, so you can't therefore see the solutions. So you're literally just like, I'm just going to do what I've always done, that annoying thing that we hate, and just keep going. But actually, when you step away from it, it can actually give you a bigger view, and you actually make more personal growth just reflecting rather than reading a book, listening to a podcast. People listening to this right now, but you can learn so much by that time stepping away. So how comes you haven't personally then, from the sounds of it, you haven't personally taken back up coaching while you've been starting this business? Why did you not invest in yourself that way to help grow your business by experiencing coaching alongside growing your business?
I don't think it was a conscious decision. I guess my answer is that I would have possibly felt a little bit guilty that I was being self-serving at the time, and that I've already been afforded some coaching before. So who am I to, in a new business where I've asked people to put their trust in me, why is it right for me to go and be the one that sort of improves myself before I offer the same opportunities to the people below me? So I guess the last 2 years, we've spent a lot of time getting the foundations right, getting the development plan in the shop floor right, making sure my senior managers buy into the vision, making sure my directors buy into the 3-year plan, and making sure that they're feeling important enough to be part of the journey. It's a question that I don't have a great answer for, because I absolutely understand that if I don't do it, then how can they do it? And I do understand that. But the only answer I can really give you is I probably would have felt guilty about being a bit greedy and doing it for myself. And, if we spend £12,000 a month, why do I get to go and spend that on me? But I think coming through the end of the financial year, going into the next financial year, is something that I absolutely need to do for myself. I feel guilty about taking a wage every month, and I feel guilty if I take a client out for dinner and I have a 3-course meal and I have a beer with it or something like that. So I guess I need to get over some of these sort of insecurities now, because we are into year 3 of trading. It's not a startup anymore. We're in this now. And it probably is time for me to double down on some personal development stuff as well.
I can say, because one of the main things, it sounds to me, being a coach, that I hear from you is this guilty bit. And that I think that's something that would be really interesting to unpick, but we're not going to do it on the podcast.
Turn it into a therapy session.
But one of the things that I've learned, which I think would be really beneficial to you, is this idea that actually, as a leader, when you work on yourself, when you work on your growth, the thing that you aren't aware of is that everyone else grows because you grow, because you think about the network of like interactions that you have and the level of influence you have, that when the leader actually gets better, everyone gets better. So their work experience, when they come into work, and actually you've worked on yourself, so therefore you're helping them. So investment in your leadership, because you've talked about the other leaders and giving them coaching, well, actually working on yourself and them, that influences everyone in the business. So, I believe everyone can benefit from coaching. And I actually think, when the leaders are getting coaching, everyone benefits because their environment is better. So it's actually something worth thinking about, that investment in yourself isn't taking away from the business, it's adding to the business. And in fact, it's multiplying, because it's not just you that's getting better. Everyone is getting better, because actually tomorrow, that interaction you have with that person may be better because you did a bit of coaching, which means that their interaction with someone else is better. So it's multiplied along the journey.
Yeah, completely get that. I think I agree with everything you just said. I think the principles are there, and that I believe it, and that's why the leadership team have been coached. I think I just maybe need to be a little bit more for myself and take that next step around appreciating that me being better is them getting better. Because I absolutely appreciate them getting better as everyone else getting better. Yeah, I think it'd be really good to go back and re-engage, because actually, the journey we've been on, we haven't stopped for the last 2.5 years, and having that time to reflect on some of the decisions that were made and why they were made the way they were made. Would I do them again? What have I learned? You don't often get that time to talk openly with people and have critical feedback that isn't tarnished with any motive. Often it comes from a place of people trying to get their opinions across or their views across. And actually what I found with coaching was it was really unencumbered and honest. And I think, I do best, and I mentioned my wife before about how she calls me out. I do best in an environment where I'm being sometimes criticized or sometimes called out. And I think from a professional standpoint, coaching has done that for me previously.
In terms of your coaching, it sounds a little bit like that there was an element of imposter syndrome early on in your career.
Yeah.
In terms of being in that boardroom, being the youngest person there, in terms of, someone criticizing you for your accent, that sort of, there's this imposter syndrome. Have you got over that? Have you dealt with that? Are you like, I am the person who runs this business and I deserve to be here? Have you sort of dealt with your imposter syndrome much?
I mean, there absolutely was. I knew that I was the best in bunny years salesman, but I'd done a business management degree, and I like to read. I knew that even going into that boardroom, just by being the best salesman doesn't make you the best sales director. I absolutely recognize that. And even at the time, I thought there was probably people that would possibly be a better sales director than me, just because I was the best salesman. So going into the boardroom, day one, absolute imposter syndrome. And I don't think that went away for a good few years. And that's probably to do with messages not being listened to, or having my say and just looking at stone-faced men going, well, you're wrong, and we'll just move on and brush it under the table. And I think it probably went away in towards the back end when I saw it going so wrong and I stopped caring. I was like, you're running this business into the ground. We need to make a change. I want it minuted that I've said this and I've said that, because actually I know you're wrong. And then coming back in the new world as an MD, I had a short period of imposter syndrome. And it was basically put to me that I'd worked for 5 or 6 MDs that hadn't been able to do what I'd been able to do with the business in years that we'd done in 2 months. And therefore, if I shouldn't be there, then they certainly shouldn't have been there. So I'm the best of a bad bunch, and just get on and do it, because actually no one else is going to do it. If you don't get on and do a good job, it's all going to fail again, and it's now on your shoulders. So this kind of hard truth telling conversation was had with one of my friends. There's a rugby friend actually who's bigger than me. So I just said, okay. I sort of reflected on that on the car journey home, and sort of said, you know what? These people have got the good job titles, and they've done, they've got initials after the name longer than mine, or they've got a background of work that maybe is better than mine, but they didn't make it work in the last business. And actually I do understand it, because I've taken the time to get to the fiber of the business and understand the root cause. And I'm not purely driven by computer says no numbers. And therefore, I did buy it. I did start it up. It is working. It is turning a profit. So I'd say it probably took 3 or 4 months in the new business to lose it. And now I don't have it anymore because what I care about is changed. I used to care about how I was perceived by so-called superiors or people with money or people that I thought would vastly enhance my life. Or, I was a small shareholder, but I was a shareholder in the business. So it was always about, we're going to sell the business for millions and millions of pounds and, you'll get £1 million before you're 40. Well, that never happened. And now it's about me doing the right things because I believe in them and people following me, and we go again and we go again and we keep doubling down on what's working.
It's interesting that you said it was a friend, someone external, because you've actually mentioned someone external talking, but that seems to be a common thing, that you like it when someone external looks on something and gives you a bit of feedback and it's not like weighted behind.
Yeah.
So that rugby friend who held the big proverbial mirror up to you and was like, this is your life, surely, you are successful at it. So how important is that to you then? How important is having these people in your life that are in different circles affirming the other circles in your life? Does that make sense?
Oh, it's absolutely fundamental. I think I have a small number of friends. I have many, many, many mates, but friends are people that I would trust with everything in my life. I trust them to look after my children, or if I broke down in the middle of nowhere, to come and get me, or to tell me I'm being an idiot, or to tell me I'm doing, friends are people that are more than just drinking partners. They're people that you can rely on in your absolute moment of need. And my wife's one of my great friends, and I've got a close-knit circle of friends. And I think they are all one commonality, and it's honesty. So none of them are sycophants. None of them would put up with me being self-pitying or being downtrodden. They all know when I'm at my best, I'm upbeat and I'm positive, and most of them know how to do that, whether it's grabbing me and taking me out for a night out, whether it's sitting me down and giving me the hard truths. And those are the people that I trust with everything in my life. Yeah.
And you can come away from your business and you can talk to them, and they can be, they give you the advice, they give you the affirmation you need in order to keep going.
Yeah, because they don't need to understand the balance sheet of the business or the stock turn. They need to understand the emotional of the business, where I am with, have we had a good month? Have we had a bad month? Have I got a tough decision to make? And the solution to that is, more often than not, them telling me to back myself that the majority of my decisions are right. I talk about having a no fear culture, stick to my convictions. And I know all this, but sometimes you just want to hear it again and again. And sometimes it takes 2 or 3 pints. And sometimes it just takes the biggest of my friends telling me off and telling me I'm being an idiot and just get on and do it. And I go to different people for different things. But I keep mentioning my wife. I sound like I'm really under the thumb here. But she's a head teacher, and she deals with children with social, emotional, mental health issues. So I'll go to work and I'll come home and she'll, how was your day? Like, I'm having a really bad day. My bit of wood didn't get machined on time. Like, how was your day? Well, this child's been ferried into this gang, or this child's been arrested. My problems do fail into insignificance. And so if she can deal with that emotional turmoil and the stresses of working with really problematic and challenging children and do it with a smile on her face and a positivity, then I absolutely need to, because her challenges are much more than mine. So I take a great strength from what she's doing.
It almost sounds like the way that you have your group of friends and you have people that you go through for different, it's almost a personal life boardroom, and then you have your business life boardroom.
Yeah, that's another great way of putting it. I think it's absolutely right. And I think in your personal life boardroom, there's no chairman, there's no CEO, there's no boss. You're all on a level. And I've tried to take that into my SMT, to take away the job title. So we remind ourselves every meeting, job titles off the table, because I don't want people in my life to just smile and nod at me and tell me yes, yes, yes. I want challenges. I want to walk away from an SMT having had debate, or I don't even mind a bit of conflict, as long as it comes from the right place. Because actually, if we're all coming at it from the same place, we get to the same answer, and that answer could be wrong. And someone's like being back at school, someone says, show your workings. Well, your workings are yes, 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 yes. And actually, you don't get the checks and balances. So that's why we do it at SMT, because I don't have job titles in my friendship circle, and that's where I take my greatest inspiration from. Sounds a bit grandiose, but yeah, that's what gets me out of bed every morning is my children, my family, my friends.
And I love when you said, because I was going to loop back around, but you did make the loop yourself, that you go back to your boardroom at work. There's no titles on the table, and you actually said you invite conflict, and it's almost the sanity check.
Yeah,
because if you were to put an idea out there and everyone said yes, you almost need that sanity check. You want that conflict. You want someone saying, no, that's a silly idea. And then you just hash it out. And actually, either the idea turns out to be better than you thought, or actually they're right. It is a silly idea. So it's that sanity check on life sometimes that you get there.
absolutely. And more often than not, what will happen is I'll have an idea and we'll debate it. And the idea is then finessed into something that's workable and manageable. Because going back to what we said right at the start, my job is to create a vision and a strategy and to know where I want to take the business. And their job is to help me do that by putting the ingredients together. So I could say, look, I want to go to the moon, but I can't build the rocket ship. I can't do any of it, but they can. So they might tell me, well, we can't make the moon, but we'll get to the space station and we'll do it in 1 year rather than 6 months. And it's still going to be amazing. And I go, okay, that's still pretty cool. And I won't bankrupt the business at the same time as doing it. So conflict's a great thing. You do need to have clear direction and clear leadership. Purgatory is the worst thing for me, stagnation and sitting still, not doing anything. So as long as we're all moving in the right direction, I could get up every day relatively positive.
So sort of summarizing up our conversation we've had, it's really good that just from this chat, anyone who's listening, this is given a very human element towards leadership. Because a lot of the time, for example, if you're getting a young person coming into a business, they will look at the person who's right at the top or the boardroom people, and they're almost not human. They're this job title, they're this person. It's like, oh my God, they're infallible. There's no, but then what you've brought to the table is a lot of yourself, a lot of your personality, a lot of your private life. You shared quite a lot with us, which has humanized the leader role, if that makes sense. So looking at someone who's new coming into the business, if they wanted to aspire to be someone like you, what pieces of advice would you give them?
I think you summed it up really well there. I think that's everything I want to be. Is I've watched people in suits and I've watched people with real qualifications and real academic achievements fail. And I've watched people be let down by their failure. So I want to be relatable. I want to be human. I want to be seen as somebody that's done something that's pretty cool. We've created a business here that's doing relatively well. So I'd say to them that we worked incredibly hard for it. I'd say that you need to work really hard. I may sound slightly off the cuff, but I do put in a lot of hours and I do work hard and I do a lot of external reading from the industry to try and be a better version of myself. So that would be the first thing is there's no substitute for genuine hard work. I would say that if you've got an idea, test it, balance it, surround yourself with people that you trust and trust implicitly to help you flesh out the bits of the idea that work, but to have the courage of your convictions and do something. Take a chance. Don't be scared to take a chance because you will regret it if you don't. Like, you're going to work for 50 years. Enjoy it. Try and do it with a smile on your face. Try and treat people how you want to be treated on the way up, because it was when we were at our lowest and that people came towards me and said, look, we want to help you. We want to supply you a bit of wood. We want to stay with you be one of your customers, because actually we were vulnerable. We exposed ourselves and we were honest. So try and do things the right way, because you can make a lot of enemies doing things the wrong way. And for me, life's too short to have enemies. And enjoy it. Try and enjoy 90% of your working week. Don't spend 90% of the week doing something you don't like. There's a fast changing world out there. There's lots of opportunities. Sometimes money is great to have, but sometimes taking a small step back to go a long way forward is a really hard thing to do, but it can pay off in the long run.
That's some really good advice. If you were looking back at yourself, let's say 5-6 years ago, would you have given yourself as like a younger leader would you have given yourself a bit of advice from your perspective now?
I would tell myself, I'll tell myself to put more money in savings and don't go to Vegas quite as much. That I think compassion is something that I would look back on myself on and look at how you're being perceived and how can you help others more. So, was there a struggling salesperson that I could have gone and put an arm around and encouraged that could have been really good, but has left the industry or is doing something that maybe not quite as because it was too competitive. And actually, I look at things like I've said it twice, The Wolf of Wall Street, and I watched it when it first came out. I was like, I wish I was in that business. I wish I was. That would have been amazing. I would have made millions because I was great at selling. I look at it now and I think how shallow that would have been, and that's not a place I want to be, and how unhappy I would have been. So I'd like to have been a bit more supportive of people around me 5 years ago, and taken a bit more time to spend with family as well. So I talked about working hard, but I do try and leave work every day at 6 o'clock so I can get home and do bath and bed with my children. And I guess I'm lucky because I had the experience just before my first child was born. But I know a lot of people that really look back on the early years with their children and regret not being there. So I do bath and bed and I get to spend an hour with them before bed. And sometimes, and quite often, I'll get the laptop out and go back to work for an hour because I don't want to watch reality TV that the wife might be watching that evening. But I get that hour every night and I'm a better person for it. I'm a better person for being with my kids. I understand what I'm working for the next day, if that makes any sense. So why I'm getting out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning and why I'm doing nursery drop-offs and why I'm working hard is to create a better life for them. And I take so much, it means so much more to me than it did buying a £2,000 bottle of Grey Goose in a Vegas nightclub 5 years ago. It just feels more genuine and I take much more satisfaction out of that.
Do you think you had to go on the journey you went on to find those lessons, or do you reckon you could have told your younger self and that younger version of you would have listened?
I think there's some amazing people out there that can tell you things. I think I got to where I am because of the journey I was on, but I think it's to do with the culture of the business I was in and the people I was surrounded by. And, I was surrounded by accountants and executives that were, and I'm not going into private equity, there's some amazing private equity businesses out there, but with driving the top line and driving the amount of money that they were going to take out of the business in a few years' time. So I do think you can be part of something that's really culturally cool without having to go on a quite a tough journey. But I think it's about surrounding yourself with people that mean well and have got integrity and want to do the right thing all of the time and are not completely self-serving. So I personally, the culture I was in, I needed the tough love. I needed to go through the hard times to have this stark realization. I'd like to think there's people in my business now that might not have been in the old business that with the culture we're setting, with the tone of the business, with the support we're putting around them, wouldn't need to go through quite as much turmoil as we went through. But for me, yeah, it was the turning point in my career.
Because it's the saying that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you are in an organization where it's surrounded by, toxic people, let's say, that are trying to do that, you then become that. Whereas if within your organization, if they're surrounded by, their 5 closest work friends are within the culture you have set, then they will, rise to become the best of that. So
yeah, the equivalent of that is spend your time and be the poorest person in your social groups. So if you're aspiring to be wealthy, surround yourself with wealthier people. And I guess that's probably where I was, is trying to be, I was the poor person in the room. I had no money, but I was surrounded by millionaires, trying to be a millionaire and vehemently unhappy doing so. And now you don't get much free time. I only spend my time with people I want to spend my time with. So I don't have friends that are, we've got to see this person at the weekend. We've got to go up to this place. If I'm doing something with you in my friendship circle, I really want to see you because actually my free time is so precious to me, and my experiences with my friendship circle means a lot to me. So yeah, I completely agree with the 5 people analogy. Completely, actually, I love it.
I could say it sounds to me like you've gone from, the biggest currency you had was money back when you were very early on in the business, whereas now the biggest currency you have is time, and therefore it's the most valuable thing you have. That if you're investing it in someone, you want it to be valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think whether it's your social life and what you do with your friends, or whether it's when you're in the building with work at work, I don't want to be spending my life having conversations about not paying suppliers, or, you know, how do we reduce the cost on this? I want to spend my time talking about the fun things in work. What's the latest technology in the market? What's the retail trends doing? What's this person's personal development doing? And so I try to spend most of my time doing things that I want to do.
Well, we've explored so much there, and there is so much that people listening are going to take from that conversation. That conversation was fantastic. You were so honest, you were so laid bare, you gave everything, you answered every single one of my questions honestly, and I love that. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really, really, really enjoyed that.
I'm sure people listening to this, you might even get some job applications, just because even I want to come and work for your business from the way you made it sound.
Well, I'm a prolific LinkedIn poster. I love talking to people. So if anyone wants to add me on LinkedIn, add me. Let's have a conversation. I'll talk to anybody about anything.
Excellent. I will also share your LinkedIn in the description to this podcast.
Chris, thank you so much. I've really, really loved that. Thank you.
And until next time, remember, to lead requires us to continuously